You've been told to speak your truth, right? That power comes from being loud, being bold, being heard. But what if that's complete bullshit? What if the most powerful thing you could ever do is say nothing at all? Yeah, I know sounds backwards. We live in a world where everyone's yelling over each other just to prove they matter. But here's the twist. The people who actually run the room, they don't scream, they don't overshare. Hell, they don't even flinch. They just sit there calm, collected, unbothered. And somehow that quiet hits harder than a punch. So now you've got to ask yourself, if silence is that powerful, why are you wasting energy trying to be loud? This isn't about shutting up. It's about showing up in a way that's so controlled, so damn intentional, it scares people. And not because you're cold, because you finally stopped leaking your power. Still think strength looks like noise? You might want to stick around, because what you're about to hear changes everything. See, the loudest person in the room is usually the most fragile. But the woman who can sit in a storm and not flinch, that's someone who's done the inner work. That's someone who understands that mental toughness isn't natural, it's a decision you make every single damn day. You wake up and you choose not to fold. You choose not to react. You choose not to let someone else write your story. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't always that guy. I used to think strength meant domination, control, making noise. It took me years to realize that the real shift, the untouchable mindset, starts in the quiet moments. When you want to clap back, but you don't. When you're about to cry, but you breathe through it. When you're misunderstood and you let it be. That's self-control. That's where your inner power is born. And here's the crazy part. Once you start protecting your energy like it's sacred, people feel it. Your silence stops being absence. It starts being presence. That's when things change. You don't chase validation. You don't need to win every argument. You walk in a room and you don't even have to speak. The shift already happened inside you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you were truly still with yourself? No phone, no distractions, just you sitting in your own mind. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? But that's where the gold is. That's the place most people run from, and the exact place where your strength is hiding. I want you to stick with me, because later I'm going to break down the one simple mindset shift that flipped everything for me, the one choice that turned my chaos into calm and my insecurity into leadership. But first, you got to understand the cost of not choosing. Because every day you stay reactive, every time you let someone else's energy dictate your peace, you're paying a price with your confidence, your time, your identity. And you don't even realize how expensive that silence is until you finally start using it with intention. So the real question isn't, how do I get stronger? The real question is, what have I been giving away without even knowing it? You know what's wild? Most people don't even realize they're leaking power all day long. Every time you over-explain yourself. Every time you apologize for existing. Every time you scroll past your dreams and compare yourself to someone else's highlight reel. That's a slow bleed, and it adds up. But here's the shift. You don't have to live like that anymore. You don't have to react to every text, every shade thrown at you, every expectation they placed on you. You can decide right now that your energy is expensive, and not everyone gets access to it. I remember one day, I was sitting in my trailer between scenes, and everything was quiet. But in my head, it wasn't. I was spiraling, thinking about all the things I didn't say in an argument, the way someone looked at me like I wasn't enough, the fear that maybe they were right. That's silence. It felt heavy, but then I asked myself something that stopped me cold. If your peace can be stolen, and that easily, was it ever really yours? That question rewired me, because I realized that I'd been giving other people the keys to my emotions, like I was renting out my own soul just to be liked. to be understood, to be safe. I understand this. Mental toughness doesn't show up in the spotlight. It shows up in the dark. In the mornings you don't want to get out of bed. In the conversations you choose not to have. In the chaos you walk away from, even when your pride is begging you to stay and fight. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. The strongest women I've met, they're not the ones making noise. They're the ones building in silence, healing in silence, elevating in silence. And when they speak, the room listens not because they're shouting, but because their presence is undeniable. You ever see someone walking and you can just feel they've been through hell and came out glowing? That's what I'm talking about. That's inner power. And you don't get that from pretending everything's fine. You get that by being real with yourself. You get that by sitting in the fire and not flinching. Let me be honest with you, we live in a world that worships speed, distraction, noise. But the people who are actually winning, they're the ones who slowed down long enough to hear their own voice. I had to ask myself, what do I really believe about myself when nobody's watching? That question cracked something open for me. Because I realized I'd been performing for a world that doesn't even know me. I was chasing approval from people who wouldn't even show up if I broke down. And sis, let me tell you, you don't need a crowd to validate your crown. You were already born royalty. But until you recognize your own worth, you'll keep asking people to value what you haven't even claimed. This journey is not about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering who you were before the world told you to be quiet, to shrink, to fit in. You don't need to chase a new version of you. You need to remember her. And when you do, when you make that one choice to stop outsourcing your earth, everything shifts. You stop chasing, you start attracting. You stop begging, you start building. You stop breaking down, and you start breaking through. Let's talk about pressure, not the kind that comes from the outside, but the kind you put on yourself. That quiet voice in your head whispering, you should be further by now. You should have figured it all out. Everyone else is winning. What's wrong with you? Let me tell you something, that voice is a liar. It's not truth, it's programming. It's the accumulation of years of conditioning, of people projecting their limits onto you. And unless you check that voice, it runs your life. You want to shift your mindset. You've got to stop arguing for your limitations. Stop defending the very things that are holding you back. I had to stop saying, that's just how I am. No, it's not. That's just who I became trying to survive. But we're not here to survive anymore. We're here to evolve. And evolution doesn't always look sexy. Sometimes it looks like isolation. Like walking away from circles that feel familiar but drain your soul. Like losing relationships you thought would last forever, not because they're evil, but because they can't meet the version of you that's emerging. Look at someone like Viola Davis. You feel her presence before she even opens her mouth. That's not just talent, that's depth. That's years of pain, transformation, self-control, and truth packed into one woman who refuses to shrink. She didn't let her past define her, she redefined herself through it. And that's available to you too. But here's the part most people don't want to hear. Becoming untouchable means letting go of the version of you that felt safe in smallness. The version of you that needed to be liked more than she needed to be free. And that's scary, because when you start choosing yourself, you lose some people, but you find you. And once you find yourself, no one can unfind you again. That's what mental toughness really is. It's not acting like nothing affects you. It's knowing what's worth your energy and what's not. It's walking away not because you're weak, but because peace has become your non-negotiable. Do you think silence is weakness? Nah. Silence is strategy. It's knowing when to speak and when to let your actions preach. It's being so grounded in your worth that someone else's opinion becomes background noise. There's a woman out there, maybe she's watching this right now, and she's tired of holding it all together. She's exhausted from proving herself to people who've already made up their minds. And she's wondering if there's more than this endless loop of self-doubt and overthinking. Let me tell you something, yes, there is. But it starts with one decision. You stop asking for permission and start standing in your position. Because you were never meant to be silent out of fear. You were meant to be silent out of mastery, control over your mind, control over your reactions, control over your destiny. That's what separates the ones who rise from the ones who repeat. You ever notice how the world trains you to look outward for answers? Like there's some blueprint out there with your name on it, some step-by-step plan to tell you who to be, how to think, when to speak, when to shrink. But what they don't tell you is real freedom doesn't come from finding a map. It comes from remembering that you are the damn compass. When I stopped chasing someone else's idea of success and started listening to my own inner voice, everything changed. The path didn't get easier, it got real. And in that realness, I found peace. I found clarity. I found me. That's what most people are missing. They think they need to add more and more affirmations, more hustle, more noise. But the real power, it comes when you strip it all away. When you get so raw honest with yourself that there's nowhere left to hide. That's when the shift happens. You don't have to fix yourself. You have to face yourself. You're not broken. You've been buried under expectations that were never yours in the first place. Family, school, religion, culture, they all hand you masks, then wonder why you can't breathe. So what do? You take the damn mask off. You sit in your silence. You let yourself be seen not by the world, but by you. And let me say this directly to the woman who's been sick and guessing her every move, who's been shrinking in rooms she was meant to lead, and you are not too much. They're just surrounded by people who can't handle depth. And that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to stop dimming your light for people who fear their own reflection. You want to build an untouchable mindset, then you have to stop negotiating with your worth. Period. No more discounts. No more apologizing for your standards. No more performing for people who would disappear the second you stop being useful to them. I remember this one night I was alone, sitting on the floor with my back against the wall. No cameras, no crew, no noise, just me and a question that changed everything. What if nothing out there can give me what I won't give myself? Validation, love, peace, direction. It's all an inside job. And from that moment on, I realized it wasn't about proving myself to anyone else. It was about becoming so rooted in who I am that nothing, not failure, not betrayal, not success, not fame could pull me off center. That's the power of inner work. You stop chasing. You stop pretending. And ironically, that's when people start paying attention. Because nothing is more magnetic than a woman who no longer needs to be seen to feel visible. You want to know why some people can walk through chaos with grace, why they don't break under pressure? It's because they've already done the hardest thing. They faced their own silence and made peace with it. The world is loud. Everyone's performing. Everyone's selling a version of themselves. But you, if you choose to go inward, if you choose to listen, to heal, to grow, you become untouchable. Not because life won't hit you, but because you finally know who you are when it does. You made it this far, and that tells me something. There's a part of you that's done playing small. A part that's tired of being the one who bends, who absorbs, who sacrifices her peace just to keep the room comfortable. That part of you, she's not weak. She's waking up. Let me tell you what happens when you make that one choice, the choice to stop asking life to go easy on you, and instead ask yourself to rise stronger. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with clarity. You begin to speak differently, not louder, but with weight. You begin to feel differently, not invincible, just grounded and shakable. Like no matter what happens, you won't be lost in it because you already found yourself. You'll notice the chaos around you still exists, the people, the drama, the doubts, they don't disappear, but they stop controlling you. You stop taking things personal. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix. And in that space, something sacred begins to grow your inner authority. And trust me, when a woman walks through life with inner authority, she doesn't have to shout. Her silence becomes a boundary. Her stillness becomes a message. Her choices, not her noise, do the talking. People will start to treat you differently. Some will respect you more, some will fall away. And both are signs that you're evolving. Don't run from that. Don't shrink for it. Let it refine you. You don't need everyone to understand your path. It's not a group project. This is your journey, your growth. And you don't tell anyone an explanation for choosing peace over chaos, solitude over noise, purpose over people pleasing. You see, the untouchable mindset doesn't come from being fearless. It comes from walking forward despite fear. It comes from looking yourself in the mirror day after day and saying, I'm still here. I'm still choosing me, and I'm not done yet. You're gonna have days where you slip, where you react, where you doubt, where you forget everything you've learned. And that's okay. Progress isn't perfect. What matters is that you don't stay there. You remember your choice. You remember your power. You realign and you move forward. You don't need 1,000 affirmations to believe in yourself. Sometimes all it takes is one promise: I will not abandon myself again. So if you're still listening, hear me on this. You got everything you need already inside of you. The silence, the strength, the wisdom, the fire. You've just been looking outside for what was always buried within, but not anymore. Now you choose your mindset. Now you protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Now you walk like the woman who finally remembered who she is. And when they ask you what changed, you tell them, I stopped asking for permission. Subscribe and like for more content. We are Wisdom Recorder.